Hello friends, and welcome back to this course titled as British Poetry. Friends, we are on the fourth lecture of Unit 2, looking at how the tale is narrated by Geoffrey Chaucer. So, the topic which we are going deep into is the pilgrimage and storytelling. The technique of storytelling, how Chaucer proves himself as a very different kind of storyteller. And in this lecture, we are going to complete Unit 2 and line by line analysis of this tale of the wife of Bath. So, we are moving towards an interesting situation. In the last class, we saw that the marriage happens between the knight and that old lady. Knight says, alas, he has to put his woe, he has to follow his woe, he has to follow his words. So, there is no choice left. Although there is a feast thrown, but everyone is sad, everyone is sympathetic towards that knight. What is going to be his life with this old ugly lady? But let us see now, something interesting is going to come in the coming lines. So, in the last class we ended on line number 1080, and today we are starting with line number 1081. And all day after hid himself like an owl, so woeful was he, his wife looked so ugly. So, knight is trying to hide himself like an owl. He cannot, let us say, look into anyone's eyes after this marriage. So woeful was he, but he has to follow his woe. His wife looked so ugly. So, what he is going to say to his friends? That his wife is very ugly. Great was the woe the knight had in his thought when he was brought to bed with his wife. So, knight thought in his mind that the woe, the words which he had given to this lady are more important than the thoughts which are going on in his mind. And with this note, he is brought to the wedding bed with his old and ugly wife. He wallows and turns to and fro. His old wife lay smiling evermore. And then a very interesting situation comes. He tries to move here and there on the bed, but he does not want to, let us say, look into the eyes of his old wife. And his old wife is smiling and looking towards him with a mysterious, let us say, looks, and said, "Oh dear husband, bless me, does every knight behave thus with his wife as you do?" And the lady says to the knight that, "You are my dear husband now, please bless me with the, let us say, your arms, just hug me." She says that the way you are behaving, the way you are trying to ignore me, all knights do the, let us say, give same kind of treatment to their wife on the wedding night or not? What do you think? Is this the law of King Arthur's house? Is every knight to his so aloof? She says that all the knights who are related to King Arthur, are they in the, let us say, similar kind of aloof like you are with me? I am your own love and your wife. I am she who has saved your life. And then she says that I am the person who is going to be in love with you, your wife, and I am the one who had saved your life. And certainly I did you never wrong yet. Why behave you thus with me this first night? And then she says that I will never do any wrong to you. I am absolutely in favor to you. And why are you behaving in this manner? Why are you avoiding me on the first night, wedding night? You act like a man who had lost his wit. What is my offense? For God's love, tell it. And then she says that, have I done any mistake to you? Am I wrong? I had saved your life. Why are you offending me? For God's love, tell it. Just tell it to me that, let us say, why have you lost your wit in my case? And it shall be amended if I can. And then she says that I am going to amend it. If there is any problem with me, just tell me. Amended, said this knight, alas, nay, nay. And then he says that, what are you going to amend? There is no change which can be done now. It will not be amended evermore. And he says that there is no correction to this problem. Nobody is going to, let's say, correct it. Thou art so loathsome and so old also. He says that you are very old, you are very ugly, and moreover descended from such low born lineage. And then he says that I belong to a higher social class, you belong to a lower social class, your lineage is very low, you were born in a very, let's say, low class family. That little wonder is though I toss and twist about. And which is why Knight says that he is twisting, avoiding this lady, moving here and there on the bed. So would God my heart would burst. Is this, she said, the cause of your distress? And then he says that my heart is going to burst in this situation. And then this lady, this, let's say, old ugly lady, she says that this is the reason of your distress. This is something very surprising. Then, yes, certainly, he said, it is no wonder. And then the knight replies to her. He says that there is no wonder that this is the reason, no other reason. Now, sir, she said, I could amend all this if I pleased before 3 days were past. And then she says that, my dear sir, I am going to amend all this, and if I am pleased before 3 days were past, within the 3 days from today, I will be pleased, providing that you might behave well towards me. And that she says, I will improve everything, but you have to behave properly for 3 days to me. But since you speak of such nobility as is descended out of old riches. And then she says, but since you speak of such nobility, you are a noble person. It is descended out of old riches, that therefore you should be noble men, such arrogance is not worth a hen. And then she says that don't be arrogant in front of me, I am your wife and I will be your life partner. So please behave nicely with me, please, let's say, respect me. Look who is most virtuous always, in private and public, and most intense ever. She further, let's say, clarifies her point of view. She says that who is going to be most virtuous in this marriage relationship, in private or public sphere, the most intense ever to do the noble deeds that he can. She says that I will be, let's say, very noble towards you in this life, in this present life. Take him for the greatest nobleman. Christ wants us to claim our nobility from him, not from our ancestors for their old riches. She says that Christ is noble towards everyone. So just behave like Christ. Don't think about my age, my ugliness, but just be humble like you are humble to everyone. These riches which you have, this, let's say, higher birth which you have, they are all going to die soon. For though they give us all their heritage, for which we claim to be the noble lineage. And then she says that what heritage have you given? Think about the Christ. He do not belong to a higher class of the society. But this noble lineage on which you are proud of, it is not something that is permanent. Yet they cannot bequeath by any means to any of us their virtuous living that made them be called noble men. She says that nobility in a person's life do not depend on your lineage. Lineage means the family in which you are born. If you are low born in a, let's say, low class family, even then you can be a noble person. So why are you, let's say, feeling proud on all these, let's say, trivial things, and commanded us to follow them in such matters. And then she says that do not get commands on, let's say, thinking about such matters. They are trivial for a noble person. Well can the wise poet of Florence, who is called Dante, speak on this matter. Lo, in such sort of rhyme is Dante's speech, very seldom grows up from its small branches. And then she says that Dante, who was one of the, let's say, famous poets, he has discussed about it, and let's say there are flowers which are grown on the branches which are not very high, but the flowers are very beautiful. Nobility of men for God, of his goodness, wants us to claim our nobility from him. And for God and for goodness, nobility is something which sometimes comes from the inner heart of a person. For from our ancestors we can claim no thing except temporal things that may hurt and injure a man. She says that whatever your ancestors had given you, they are just temporary things, but you are hurting or injuring a person, that is something more important than this. So, she is trying to convince that knight that do not hurt, that do not break my heart, I love you so much. Also every person knows this as well as I. If nobility were planted naturally unto the certain lineage down the line, then in private and in public they would never cease. And then she says that if nobility comes from within, comes within your heart, if it plants naturally in your heart, not from your, let us say, family and birth, then that is something which will be considered as, let us say, permanent nobility, which will remain in you when you are in your private, let us say, sphere, or when you are in your public sphere. It is not going to cease. You will be truly considered as noble men in that situation. To do the just duties of nobility, they could do no dishonor or vice, take fire and beer, it is in the darkest house. And then she further says that just obey your duties of nobility. You are not going to dishonor, or you are not going to, let us say, move on the vice's path. Take fire and bear it in the darkest house. So, you have to keep that fire within your heart, and you have to bear that in the darkest of your house. House means your body, your mind. Between this and the mount of Caucasus, and let men shut the door and go away. So, between, let us say, this place where we are sitting and the far away places, she mentions that, and then she says that we have to, let us say, shut our doors and go away. You will be fire as bright blaze and burn, as if 20,000 men might it behold. Its natural function it will always hold. And then she says, if you can hold this fire of nobility within yourself, you will be better than 20,000 men whom you meet. That is the natural function. It will hold somewhere in the, let us say, deep of your heart. On peril of my life I say, until it dies. And then she says that till my birth and till your birth, we will be noble people in our life. Here may you see well that nobility is not joined with possession, since folk not do behave as they should, always as does the fire low in its nature. So, she says that, let us say, let us not join the possession of the people who are wrong in the society, since folk not do behave as they should. Since, let us say, good people do not behave like, let us say, the crowd is behaving, the mob is behaving, always does the fire low in its nature. So, you need to keep that fire of, let us say, vices low in your nature. You need to behave wisely in your life. For God knows it, men may well often find, and God knows very well that man is going to find a lord's son doing shame and dishonor. So, you will be found doing shame and dishonor to God, to Lord's son, to Jesus Christ. You will not be considered as a person with nobility, with honor, with dignity, and he who will have praise for his noble birth. So, for the person who had praised for the noble birth, because he was born of a noble house, the person who is, let us say, high bred, high born, and had his noble and virtuous ancestors, and will not himself do any noble deeds, nor follow his noble ancestry that is dead, he is no noble, but he duke or earl, for churlish sinful deeds make a churl. She says that if a person is not doing any noble act, but belong to a noble family, then that person in a true sense cannot be considered as noble. Whether he may be a duke or earl, duke and earl are considered as very high reputed, let us say, society families in the English society, but they will be considered as churlish sinful deeds make a churl. Let us say they will be considered as churling in the vices of the society. For nobility is nothing but renown of thy ancestors for thy great goodness, which is of a thing not naturally part of thy person. So, nobility is something which is, let us say, which is not a natural instinct, but you have to develop within yourself, that how you will be considered as a noble person in this society. Thy nobility comes from God alone, then our true nobility comes from grace. It was not at all bequeathed to us with our social rank. And then she says, nobility comes from God. That is the blessing of God. It comes from the grace of God, not from your social rank. So, nobility is something which is not related to your birth in a, let us say, high class family, but something that originates from your heart. Think how noble, as says Valerius, was that same Tullius Hostilius that out of poverty rose to high nobility. Read Seneca and read also Brotius. And then she gives the example of these, let us say, mythological characters who were born in a very low class family, but even then considered as very noble people in their society. There shall you see clearly that it is no doubt that he is noble who does noble deeds, and therefore, dear husband, I thus conclude, although it is so that my ancestors were rude, you may the high God, and so hope I, grant me grace to live virtuously. And then she says that I have not chosen where I am going to take birth. I belong to a low family and I will remain. But the noble deeds which I do or you are going to do, that will going to decide that how much noble we are in this life. So, please grant me this grace, let us say, live virtuously and act on my, let us say, suggestions. Then am I noble when I begin to live virtuously and abandon sin. So, I will be noble if I leave, let us say, sin, and I will live virtuously in this life. And whereas you reprove me for poverty, the high God on whom we believe in voluntary poverty chose to live his life. And then she says that even Jesus Christ chose to live a life of poverty. He was born in the family of a shepherd. So, please do not blame my poverty. That is something which is a blessing to me. And certainly every man, maiden or women can understand that Jesus, heaven's king, would not choose a vicious form of living. Glad poverty is an honest thing certainly, that will Seneca and other clerks say. And then she says that even the people like Seneca and many other people had said in the religious books that Jesus Christ was, let us say, voluntary poor person. He voluntarily choose that situation because honesty lies in poverty, not in a, let us say, in a rich family. Whoever consider himself satisfied with his poverty, I consider him rich, although he had not a shirt. He who covets as a poor person, for he would not that which is not of his power. Then she further says that if you, let us say, are a poor person, it does not mean that you do not have any power in yourself, but he who has nothing now covets to have things, is rich although you consider him a knave. True poverty, it rightly sings, Juvenal says of poverty merrily. And then she says that even in the juvenile satire, there is a praise of poverty given, suggesting that poverty is good for a person's life. The poor man, when he goes along the road away, before the thieves he may sing and play. And then she says that the life of a poor person is safe, because the thieves are not going to steal him, because he had no money. Poverty is a hateful good, and I guess a very great remover of cares. She says that poor people are not, let us say, caring to something. They are careless because they had nothing to hide. There is no money with them. A great amender also of wisdom to him that takes it in patience. So, there is wisdom, there is patience in poverty, which you need to understand. Poverty is this, although it may seem miserable, a possession that no one will challenge. She says that although a poor person always lives in a miserable situation, but nobody wishes to take your life. That is something which you possess, and nobody is going to, let us say, will the way you are living your life. Poverty, very often when a man is low, makes him knows his God and also himself. She says that when you are living in a critical circumstances, when you are a poor person, then you will know yourself more and God more. You will think about God, you will think about himself. So, poverty is an eyeglass, as it seems to me, through which one may see his true friends. she gives a very good suggestion to knight. She says that if you are poor, through the, let us say, glass of this poverty, you can find true friends, because nobody will be attracted towards you because of your name and fame, but you will get two friends who will not desire anything from you, but they are friends to you because they are emotionally attached to you. And therefore, sir, since I do not injure you, you should no longer reprove me for my poverty. And then she concludes this by saying that do not, let us say, dishearten me, do not injure me by saying that I am a poor, so I am lower to you. Now, sir, of old age, you reprove me, and certainly, sir, though not authority. She says that now let us come to the third allegation which you put on me, that I am an old lady. Then please, let us say, do not challenge the authority of God. Where in any book you gentle folk of honor say that men should be courteous to an old person. She says that if you read any book of the world, the book will say that you need to be gentle, you need to be sympathetic towards old people in the, let us say, society. Do not, let us say, blame them, do not irritate them, and call him father because of your nobility, and author shall I find as I guess. And then she says that you can call an old person your father because you are noble, and there are many authors who had, let us say, discussed about it. Now, where you say that I am ugly and old, then do not fear to be cuckolded, and filth and old age, as I may prosper, are great guardians of chastity. And then she says that being my old is something that is blessing for you. How? She says that I am an old lady, so filthy I am, and I may prosper as great guardian of chastity. Chastity means no other man in the world is going to make affair with me, so I will be chasteful to you. I will be, let us say, always remain faithful to you, because no man wish to make physical relationship with me. But nonetheless, since I know your delight, I shall fulfill your worldly appetite. And then she says that I can understand what kind of delight you expect, and I shall fulfill the worldly appetite which, let us say, you have in your mind. Choose now, she said, one of these two things, to have me ugly and old until I die, and be to you a true humble wife. And then she, let us say, asks this question to this knight. She says that what do you wish to choose? That I will remain ugly and old till my death, and I will remain humble to you, trustworthy to you, and never displease you in all my life. And I should never, let us say, displease you, never disobey you, always follow your instructions. Or else you will have me young and fair, and take your chances of the crowd. And then she says, or you wish me to become young and fair, so that everyone in your, let us say, surroundings, all men wish to make affair with me. Crowd means the men who had interest in young women. That shall be at your house because of me, or in some other place, as it may well be. And then she says that all men in your company, they wish to make physical relationship with me. What do you wish to choose in this situation? Now choose yourself whichever you please. This knight deliberates and painfully sighs, but at the last he said in his manner. Now the knight is tensed, because the wife has asked a very critical question to him, and he is, let us say, confused that what he is going to choose. And then he answers this question to the lady. My lady and my love and wife so dear, I put me in your wise governance. And then he says that he now accepts the wiseness of this lady. Choose yourself which may be most pleasure. And then he says, in whatever, let us say, you feel more pleasure, you choose about it, and most honor to you and me also. And then I leave it to you, that what will be most honorable to you and me. I do not care which of the two, for as it pleases you is enough for me. And then he says that whatever, let us say, accepted to you out of these two situations, I will, let us say, accept that. I do not want to go against your instructions, your orders. I am giving you complete sovereignty in this situation. Then have I gotten mastery of you, she said, since I may choose and govern as I please. And then the lady, she says that now I have got mastery over you. Now you will take my commands and I may choose and govern as I please. So I choose and govern to you in your coming life. Yes, certainly, wife, he said, I consider it best. And then he says that now I consider it best in this situation. Whatever you decide, you are wise, lady, you are more wise than me, so I accept your instructions. Kiss me, she said, we are no longer angry, for by my troth I will be to you both. And then she asks this knight to kiss, let us say, her in this situation. This is to say, yes, yes, both fair and good. And then both fair and good, let us say, I pray to God that I may die insane, unless I to you be as good and true as ever was wife since the world was new. And suddenly, let us say, when the knight kisses to this lady, everything changes. The world becomes anew to this person. And unless I am tomorrow morning as fair to be seen as any lady, empress or queen. And then the lady says that after you kiss me, after this night, tomorrow morning, I will be fair like a lady, empress or a queen or a princess. This is between the east and also the west. Do with my life and death right as you please. And then she says that wherever you go in east and the west, I will be found as the most beautiful one out of the, let us say, people, ladies whom you meet. And till my life or death, I will remain in that situation. Cast up the curtain, look how it is. And when the knight saw truly all this, and then she asked the knight to raises the curtain and look at the face of that lady after kissing her. And when the knight saw truly all this, that she so was beautiful and so long, moreover, for joy he clasped her in his two arms. Suddenly a miracle happens. Knight, when looks at the, let us say, face of this lady, he sees that she is very beautiful and, let us say, fair and young now. And he puts her into his two arms. His heart bathed in a bath of bliss. He feels very happy. He feels overjoyed. 1,000 times in a row he did her kiss, and then he kisses her again and again and again. And she obeyed him in everything that might do him pleasure or enjoyment. And then she followed all the instructions of her husband in the afterlife, obviously, and gave him all the pleasures and enjoyments in life. And thus they live unto their lives' end in perfect joy, and Jesus Christ ascend, husband meek, young and vigorous in bed. And then in this way, wife of Bath, let us say, closes her tale in a perfect joy. And then she gives the, let us say, example of Jesus Christ. She says that Jesus Christ had sent us all in this world, husbands meek, young and vigorous in bed, and grace to outlive them whom we wed. She says that whosoever we marry, we should be very graceful to that person, very vigorous to that person in the bed. And also I pray Jesus shorten their lives. They will not be governed by their wives. And then those who do not, let us say, get instructions from their life should be decreased by the God. And this is the instruction of God, to make relationship, physical relationship, which is why husbands and wives are introduced in the world. So Jesus Christ is in favor of physical relationship between men and women. And old and angry misery in spending, God sent them soon the very, let us say, pestilence. And in this way, whether it is angry or misers in spending, let us say, the relationship between husband and wife, God is going to send them soon very pestilence. The gods, let us say, pestilence will be sent to these people who live such kind of life. And then the tale ends with here and death, the wife's tale of Bath. So in this way, this, let us say, tale of the wife of Bath ends. And with this note, our lecture also ends. In the next class, we will begin discussion on Unit 3. That is all for today. Thank you for listening.